us, we have Ann Zimmerlee, Jean Hayden, and Dominic. So they're going to share a little bit about their experience, their stories, and it's really going to be kind of an informal kind of discussion. If people have questions, an opportunity for that as well. So.
Okay, thank you. My name is Marianne, and I'm talking about, I am a caregiver for my husband, Terrence. I would say he was a very educated man. He worked for HVAC for Surefire. He was an engineer, design engineer for heating and ventilating. And he did taxes for H&R Block, so he was very good with numbers and things. And he retired in 2008 when he was 65 years old, and I retired in 2010, and he had stayed very active through the Senior Citizen Center in Beaver Dam and helped with the fundraising and designing. Yet on the side, he designed our church heating and ventilating when they bought the old Ashley furniture store, and he did the kitchen in there. He went to all these kitchens and things, and very intelligent. Well, then things started changing. When I retired, he was starting to get nasty, and his personality started changing, and he was really easygoing and pretty fun-loving, and then he was criticizing everything of me, and everything was wrong that I was doing. And I had gone to a chiropractor who is a friend, and I said to her, I don't know if my marriage is falling apart, but something is seriously going wrong in our house. And she referred me to a Christian counselor. I went in, Terry came in with me the second appointment, I went in for a third appointment, and then in talking, she said, I just want to throw this out here, but it sounds like he could have the beginning of dementia with this personality change was the real clicker. So I went to his doctor with him, and he gave him that 30-question test, and he only had 4 wrong. And he said, well, there's nothing wrong with him. And I said, but this and this and this is happening at home. And the doctor was just like, no, he's fine. And I'm just like, no, he's not. So I had my doctor appointment a month or so later, and I just broke down and started crying in her office. There's something wrong, and he's not acknowledging it, and blah, 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 and I don't know what to do anymore. And she suggested a neuropsychologist in Madison, and I had to get a referral from the first doctor. She couldn't refer because it had to be his doctor. So I called him, well, if you want to waste your time and money, go ahead. So I did, and we went down to Madison, and I went with him, and she did 3 hours of testing in the morning with him. We talked for about an hour, and then she tested for 3 hours. We went out for lunch. We came back, and the diagnosis at that time was mild cognitive impairment. So she gave me she did a different test on him. I have to say that this 30-question test, there's one for people that are higher ability. Like the one the doctor gave him was for anybody that had a high school degree. And this doctor in Madison said he's gone beyond, and he's got this analytical mind. You know, he's lost a lot more. You know, he was okay on the regular scale, but on what he had lost was a lot more. So she gave me a book, do this, repeat this is what you're going to see. Well, then she said, keep anecdotes, and I did, and we went back the following year, and I shared things with her, and she retested them, and she said there's been significant loss, that he is definitely, she said, I don't want to say it to get you all upset, but I would call it very early stage Alzheimer's. So my world was just, oh no. Because this is a long trip. And I know that one day I was hanging out wash, and he came out, and I had just collapsed on the ground and was crying. And he goes like, what's wrong? And I said, I'm losing you. And he said, no, you're not, I'm right here. And I just shook my head, and I said, no, I'm losing you, because he wasn't my Terry anymore. And he looks like Terry, he acts like Terry, and people that I've been around have said you wouldn't know looking at him, and you don't, because he is very quiet or whatever. He used to even do the Lions fruit sale. And he was in charge of everything. He ordered the fruit, he got the books that they got the orders from, the fruit came in, and he sold it and did the truck sale and everything, and now he can't do any of that. He doesn't have the capacity to do it anymore. He used to do taxes for H&R Block and for the senior center. He's lost all that. He wasn't paying bills, he was double paying bills. I had to take over that, which I had completely ignored because that was Terry's job. My job was to do this. And so that's one of the big losses I've noticed. And even taking care of things around the house. When the garage door wasn't opening and working right, we did call Hometown Glass to come, and it was a switch. I went, oh my God. It was $78 for this one reset button. And normally he would have been able to figure that out. He would have gone right to that. And the second time it happened, well, they did, as long as they were there, they checked the whole thing and made it worth the amount. But then the next time it happened, I had to take him out to the garage, put the ladder down for him, had him crawl up on it and said, I'm gonna read this aloud to you. Do you see the little red button up there? Yeah. Push that little red button. This one? Yeah, that one. And we did get the garage to work again. And just little things in the house. The light was flickering in the kitchen, and it's those fluorescent lights, and I know we replaced them once before, and I said, well, all you have to do is take down that panel and take out those lights. He's tall and he can get up there, and he just looked at me like I was an alien talking to him. And I got my son-in-law over, and he said, oh, you just take this down, and he took us to Walmart and we got the parts. But, you know, my Terry would have been able to take care of all that. When all this was happening, I think it was a senior expo in Beaver Dam that was at the Wayland Academy, and I think that's where I met Judy Weiss, who was with the ADRC. It was his predecessor. And she was the one I talked to, and pretty much she contacted me. I needed to come in and talk with me, and they have been a godsend, and so is Rob. Rob has picked up right where Judy left off. And she said, we got these programs, and so we went in for various programs, and now Rob and Judy had told me about these conferences and going and learning. Some of them have been really good. It was kind of fun. He's got his little personality. Some of it's there yet. We went to one of these 3-week trainings where the caregivers were in one room and the clients in the other room, and it happened to be all women in this group and all men in that group. Well, we had a folder and we had activities that we had to follow through with and things we had to read so we could discuss it the next time. And when I got out to the car, Terry had his folder, and I said, do you have any homework? He goes, I don't know, and if I would have forgotten what to do anyway. So no, they didn't give us any homework to do. So it's just, there is a lot of stress. My kids are in denial somewhat. My daughter was totally in denial because it's her daddy. She's 37, and my son, when he came over, like, what's wrong with Dad? Thank you for noticing that there's something not right. He goes, well, he doesn't remember anything. He's repeating everything and losing everything. And my daughter goes, well, Mom, you lose things too. Yeah, but not like he hasn't put the keys in the refrigerator yet, but it's interesting finding kitchen utensils all over the place. And you know, for 30 years they've been here. And now I'm like, okay, what was he thinking? Or, oh, he has it in with the measuring cups instead of the measuring spoons. At least he's got the measuring. But that's going more and more. He does like gardening, and that's my savior right now. I can get him outside for the gardening. But I'd like my kids, they all say, well, just call and let me know when you need me. I do call them. I said, we need you. Oh, I'll be there, and then my son will call and say, oh, we're going camping this weekend. And I said, I need you to just take Dad. Well, we want you along. And I said, but I need you to just take Dad, because if I throw things away, He's going through the garbage and picking it out. Why did you throw this away? Because I want to throw it away. I don't want it anymore, I'm letting go. And now, so my house is kind of a disaster area because I just don't have the energy. We did not go the medication route. They wanted to put him on Aricept. We tried it for 3 months and I didn't see any change at all. And then I had found this book and it said, like that doctor in the morning said, the medications really weren't doing anything. So I have kept him very, very active. Gene can swear to that. He goes to an exercise class. We take a lot of day trips together through Nationwide. We just got back from Florida with the kids. He finally went to a neurologist a year and a half ago, and he said, did anyone ever do an MRI? And I said, no, which I thought someone should have, and he did it right away and came back, and he said, if you're going to do any or make any memories with your family, I suggest you do it soon, because there has been significant loss. So we did, and he's at the point where he's following me around like a 6-year-old. When I go into the bathroom to brush my teeth, he's standing right next to me brushing his teeth. He doesn't come into the bathroom with me when I have to go, that the grandchildren do, but he doesn't do that at least. But when I go to the library, he follows me to the card catalog, he follows me to where I'm looking for books, and I said, you know, you could sit down there and look at the paper. No, I'd rather be with you. And so my space is getting smaller and smaller. And about a year and a half ago, and I don't know if it's related to it, but I do feel it was some way, the stress level is high. I had a mild stroke. I was at class, I teach a strong women class. I was going to go to class and I was texting a friend and part of the text went away, and when I looked up, part of my vision was gone. So I went to the class and I said to the other teacher I teach with, I said, am I having a stroke or is this detached retina or something? And she said, I think it's detached retina. So I called the eye doctor. He got me in within 45 minutes, checked everything. Your eyes are fine, your carotid artery is fine, you need to see your doctor. I saw her in the afternoon. She thought it was a migraine without headaches. So she set me up with a neurologist in Madison, a different one. And I drove down there. This happened on a Monday, and my vision came back, and I was fine, and I drove down there, and he said, well, I think we need to have an MRI done. And I said, okay, and drove home. We went shopping and putzed around in Madison, came home, and on Saturday I had a drink of wine, just a 4-ounce glass, and I got such an intense headache, and I don't know if that was kicking off the stroke again or what, and the paper started moving, and I went, oh, close your eyes, and my eyes got better. On Monday I was teaching my strong women class, and my arm went down, and my world just shrunk. And I thought, boy, am I dehydrated. So I sat down and had my bottle of water, and I looked around the room, and I could only remember one person out of this class of 20 women. I looked at her, and I didn't know anybody else in the room. So I said, something's really wrong. So I didn't drive home. My husband was there first. He drove me home. Some friends drove my car home, and he took me to the hospital, and as he was taking me there, he goes, what's wrong with me now? And I said, nope, this one's my turn, it's my turn. Well, when they did the MRI, the neurologist said, you had this a week ago. He said, you have scar tissue and you had afterbursts, but all I've lost is my right peripheral vision. So I have to turn my head. I can't see them at all. I don't even sense that they're there. And the doctor, when I went back for follow-up, he came to Beaver Dam, so I didn't have to drive back down to Madison, but he said, well, I had an enlarged heart and there's other issues going on, but he said, you're kind of a phenomenon. He said in his career of over 30 years, there's only been 5 people that have reacted like me. He said, you should have some major disabilities. And the only thing you've lost is this some peripheral vision. So he said, so don't ask me, well, is this normal? It's not normal for you. So he's kind of, it is what it is with you. And I said, well, I must have another purpose on this earth then, that who's going to take care of my husband if I'm not here? So that's where we're at with him. He's still driving. He shouldn't be. That's another issue, but I don't.
We're working on it.
We're working. That's more for me to do when he drives himself to his exercise class and he volunteers at St. Vincent de Paul, and he likes going there because he needs to be away from me. I need him to be away from me because we're together 24/7 pretty much. So. And let's see, I'm trying the wellness route now too. We went to a wellness doctor who did allergy testing because I was watching a webinar and it said he has lymphedema in his legs, he's got the memory loss, and then he got eczema. And I said, there's something wrong with your immune system, that you're literally falling apart. So he did allergy testing and we've cut out a lot of those foods. And he did stool testing and he said, you have a bacterial and a yeast infection. You haven't gone into the doctor for this, so we have to go back like within a week or so to find out. But I'm not seeing a lot of changes other than he's still deteriorating. So that's where we are, kind of, I'd say mild to moderate stage. Would you call it that? I said, he's still functioning. He still can be at home alone today. He still watches TV, plays on his tablet, and he does the yard work and stuff, but when he shaves, he only shaves one side of his face. Do I look really good, honey? And I say, this side is awesome. I'm even gonna kiss it. This side, not so much. And I said, you need to go back up and shave the other side of your neck. Okay. And the other day when it was 20 degrees, he came down in shorts. I'm like, you're gonna be cold. Please put on long pants. So, he's missing out on those kind of things, those cues too. So, and yes, our social world has become smaller, but I take him out and we're going out to eat tonight. Oh, thank you. He's like a little kid. Oh, that was really good. Thank you for taking me out to eat with you. So it's just like, your husband's become a kid, younger than my grandchildren. And that's hard to live with. So that's my story.
What are you doing about the driving?
He just drives himself to his exercise class twice a week, otherwise I drive everywhere. He has to go down our street to the stop sign, go through the stop sign, turn, and he's there. So I would not let the kids in the car with him. I told my daughter, don't let the kids be in the car with him.
And he doesn't have a problem with you driving that? He doesn't?
No. He's pretty good. My son-in-law one day in the car said, when Terry's done with the car, we want to buy the car from you. And Terry was in the back seat with me in their vehicle, and he looked at me, what is he talking about? I said, someday you're getting older, you're 73, you might want to not be driving anymore, because he is driving less and less. He doesn't know where we are. When we're driving to Fond du Lac to my son's house, he'll go, where are we going? What street are we on and stuff. I said, this is why you're not driving anymore. But it's going to be his loss of independence and more of my loss of independence.
I have a question about driving also. What have you done as far as trying to, I know personally you're trying to limit it, but you in the middle there, you said that you're working on it. What do you mean by working?
What I meant by working on it is that I know how difficult it is for a loved one to take away someone's independence. So I just keep sharing with Mary Ann that there are steps and times for everything, and it's a personal decision, but I just encourage her to consider the safety of him and everybody else on the road, and it's just going to be the next step, and she's getting there.
She told me the other day, make believe the car is going in to be fixed, Only it doesn't come back, oh, he's still working on it, he's still working. But my son-in-law wants it for a beater car for work, and I said, but if he goes there, he's gonna see his car there, and that's gonna bother him. So it's, once in a while, he'll say, we should get those wristbands in case I get lost, I should get rid of this car, and the next day, what are you talking about? I'm fine, I can do this, and I'm between a rock and a hard place right now with them. But I do most of the driving.
Well, law enforcement professional, I've submitted a bunch of driver condition behavior reports to the DMV. And the only advice I can give you is you need to make that decision. As a family member, doesn't have to be law enforcement, you can submit those reports. Doesn't take his license away. All you're doing is requesting DMV to examine, to review his ability to drive. And doctors can put restrictions on or whatever. I've been to, unfortunately, a number of crashes where family members were reluctant to do what you're facing, and it puts them in a position where they may not be able to have a license any longer. The innocent people have been severely hurt because of people getting in a crash, or person themselves. I've had a number of them driving the wrong way on one-way streets. It's only by the grace of God on a 55-mile-an-hour highway they didn't kill themselves or somebody else. So it's something you need to take care of sooner rather than later. It's a tough situation.
Oh, it's hard.
And my mother's 86. She's getting to the point where I don't think she should be driving probably either, but I haven't seen her do anything severe enough where I say, no, you can't be driving anymore. But I have the same concerns. She doesn't have any dementia problems. She's just to that age where I just don't think it's a good idea for her to drive. How do you tell her no? The only good thing I ever heard from DMV is most people, when they have issues where they feel that the driving is somewhat impacted, they self-police it and self-limit what they will do themselves. But the problem is sometimes they don't realize or think they're having a problem when anyone else watching them realizes that they are. And that's the really bad things that happen. So it's a hard decision, but I really urge you to revisit that sooner rather than later before you or somebody else gets hurt.
I keep saying before winter, before the roads get bad, we gotta get the car away. Like next week. It may snow. Any other questions?
I actually don't have a question. It's more of
A comment?
yeah. Your story really hit me. Andy is my husband. It's all brand new. But the 2 years prior, and the doctors not listening and everything, it was hard. But then now that you guys were just on the driving thing, it makes me think of before he was diagnosed and he was going to the VA in Madison to get his hearing aids. And he's probably going to get mad at me for even sharing, but I don't care because it's been 18 years. What's he going to do? Tell me to leave. So, anyways, on the way back, he had hit one of those round barrel cones, and he called me outside of Columbus. When I first called him, I didn't know if there was any type of driving issue, at that time. He called me and he was crying and said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm so sorry, Jen. I don't know what's wrong with me, and blah, blah, blah. He got home, so, I don't know if you've ever talked to your husband. Like, him and I, we talked. So he hasn't done anything other than that traffic cone that has been anything bad, but he keeps himself on a radius. There's just, even though it's very mild with him, he's on a radius. He always reports to me when he's going to, he'll get yelled at if he doesn't, but he reports to me whenever he's going anywhere, which kind of helps. And but I'm scared for that time when I have to one day say, you can't drive it anymore,
Have the doctor say it.
Yeah. And that's what I love about his doctor. His doctor says that he is in control, taught me how to unbubble wrap, because I tell you what, my brain was bubble wrapping him big time. How to unbubble wrap and let him live, which is very hard. But she also says, you're in control, Andy, until I am, until I say, and until she is, you know what I mean, to him. And you know, it's that sort of thing, but it is scary. I can't imagine having to say, hey, Andy, you can't drive anymore. But I just want to thank you more so because your story really hit home.
Good, thank you.
Anything else for Mary Ann?
You said, see the doctor, and have the doctor say he can't drive. I had that happen with my stepmom. They told her, no, you cannot drive. She continued driving. I went to the DMV and said, hey, we got a problem. What did they do? She went up next week and got her license renewed for 8 more years. I finally said, Mom, you can't drive anymore, and I took her car away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, when the doctor said you cannot drive, take the keys right then. You know, easy for me to say, I get that. But it's, I have to keep talking about the safety of everybody else on the road.
She ran up a $400 long-distance phone call bill between her house and mine in 30 days.
It's hard.
Well, that's the other thing. With the DMV, my neighbor is 86, and last year he broke his neck. He fell and broke his neck, was in the hospital and in rehab for a year, and now family just moved him back. He lives alone on the farm. Both girls are out of state, and they came home and took him to the DMV, and they got his license back. So he can't even turn his neck, but he's driving.
Challenges you got. Hi. Is it on? Oh. Okay. Hi, can you hear me? Okay. My name is Jean Hayden, and I'm here today to talk about things that were not on my radar. In the spring of 2004, I started becoming aware of changes in my husband Frank's personality and actions. I would say to the kids, that's just not like your dad. And there were just things going on that we knew weren't right. In May, I got very sick. May of 2004, I got very sick, and my daughter took me to the emergency room. I ended up with 106.8 fever, and so that my kids called my husband. He worked second shift. I worked days. So they called and told his supervisor to tell him that he had to come to the hospital. So Frank got to the hospital in the emergency room, came in, and I'm laying there packed in ice, and he says, yeah, my supervisor said I had to come over here. Hello, I could be dying. You know, I didn't recognize him anymore because that was not my husband. We always talked, and I know we talk about now, thinking in retrospect, I can think back several years when we thought we were having communication problems and I thought we needed a marriage counselor, or he was depressed and he got on depression medicine, but once his personality really changed, then we knew it wasn't Frankie. So a couple weeks after that, when I got out of the hospital, the tornado blew through Waupun, and unfortunately one of our friends from work, Arnie Gallenbach, was killed. And so they were asking for volunteers to go to their farm in Waupun and to clean up any personal items that we could. And I was still just recovering, but Frank told me on the weekend, he says, they're doing something for Arnie, I want to go. I said, oh, okay, yeah, we'll go. So we went out to the house, and many people from work had gathered, and we were waiting to get started. And some people were talking about that tornado and saying that it had been on a straight line until it took a turn, and like it turned right toward Arnie's house and took it out. And Frank started laughing. I was mortified. And so were all the people around me. And I'm just going, who are you? a real wake-up call. A lot of that wasn't on my radar at the time, but it's those jarring moments that wake us up. So in July then, I asked the doctors to check in at his yearly checkup for his memory and concentration. So the doctor asked him a few questions and ordered a CT scan. On August 20th, 2004, unfortunately, my mother was at the University of Iowa City Hospitals, and I was going back and forth from work to Iowa City, and our transportation options were very limited. So we had talked about buying a truck for quite some time. So on the way home, just for the heck of it, I drove through the Columbus dealership, and they had a black four-door truck, just like we'd been talking about, in our price range. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll get home, and Frank worked second, so he was up when I got there. It was 8:30 in the morning. I came back from my mom, and I said, honey, well, I'm getting ready to run into work. Can you please go and just take that truck for a test drive? Just see if you like it, because it seemed like it would be what we're looking for and in a price that we can handle. So, okay, he went, and I'm then getting ready for work, and I'm waiting, and it's 12:30, and I'm wondering, where is he? And then all of a sudden, I see him pulling up in the driveway with two men behind him in a black truck. I said, hi, what's going on? And they said, oh, well, your husband just bought a truck. I said, he what? We had not, honestly, we did everything together. We handled all the money and everything together. We had never bought anything more expensive than a toaster without the other person's approval, okay? And he comes home with a truck. I says, well, how did he even get it? Don't I have to sign some papers or something? Oh, no, his credit was fine. So I'm looking at him, he still has not said one word. There's just this blank look on his face. So I'm beside myself I don't want to yell at Frank, well I do, but I don't want to yell at Frank in front of these people. And I didn't want to embarrass him. I needed a truck. My mom is very sick. I got to get to work. Okay, so what do you need? He says, well, we need a check for $2,000. I says, well, I can't get that for you today. I says, oh, and they said, oh, that's okay. We'll give you 3 days. Okay, so give me the keys and go away, So I have a brand new truck now, and I have to get to work. So I get to work. We both worked at John Deere, and we lived in Beaver Dam. So I got to John Deere, and so now it's like 1 o'clock. And at 2 o'clock, Frank calls me and says, yeah, the doctor just called me and I have Alzheimer's, and hung up. So I called him back and I said, what did you say? Yeah, the doctor said I have Alzheimer's, and hung up. So then I called the doctor's office. I said, did someone just call my husband and tell him that he had Alzheimer's? And they said yes. We from the CAT scan, said that he has early Alzheimer's probably. And that they're going to refer him to the memory clinic in Beaver Dam. Okay, so I did get a little upset with him, okay? Chewed him out a little bit for telling a gentleman that they just diagnosed with early Alzheimer's, that he had it, and that they didn't talk to somebody else. So I hang up from them and I go, okay, totally off my radar. What do you mean he has Alzheimer's? He's 53 years old, I don't know anybody with Alzheimer's. Grandma had it, when he was 90. So off my radar, and I'm thinking, okay, I have to get back down to Iowa City. So that's on my radar, getting down to my life. So in September, the real journey began, when we were able to get into the memory clinic fairly quickly. And I think that was because I was beside myself, a mess, and Frank's age. So because it could take months to get into the memory clinic, they only had it once a month. And unfortunately, we don't have one in Dodge County right now, which they need to work on. But I forgot. What was I saying? Oh, the memory clinic. Jeepers, see how
It affects us.
comes and goes. So anyway, we were so blessed that we were able to get into the memory clinic as quickly as we did. And so they referred us to the neurologist, psychologist, neuropsychologist, and Frank had a PET scan in Madison. And that was what determined his diagnosis. On November 12th, 2004, it was 5 p.m. on Friday afternoon, and I was sitting on the couch and the phone rings. It was Dr. Eric Miller calling me at home to tell me that Frank's PET scan showed that he had frontotemporal dementia. He could no longer work or drive immediately. What? Not on my radar. I didn't even know what you just said. What language are you speaking? I said, what did you say he had? And he said frontotemporal dementia. So I'm trying to write it down. I didn't even know how to spell it. And I said, okay, he's at work. And he says, well, Jean, you just can't, I'll write a letter and you can take it into work to give to them that he is no longer able to work. So I said, okay. And then I lost it. And the only thing I remembered really from that conversation was he had a dementia and we had thought it was Alzheimer's. I need to call the Alzheimer's support group. I need to know what do I do? Who do I talk to? So that was a call that I made that night to our support group leader in Beaver Dam at the time, Darla Engel, at Troston House. And she talked me through the phone numbers that I can reach and when the support group was, and she encouraged me to come into Troston House, which is an adult day program at Green Valley in Beaver Dam. So we went the next Monday. I skipped ahead a little bit on that set, but prior to that on Saturday, my son came over Saturday morning to help me tell Frank that he couldn't drive anymore. So that gave us a clue that he was further into it, a further decline than any of us realized. It was off my radar that he wasn't able to make decisions anymore like that. So Tim says, Dad, he says, you don't have to go to work anymore. And unfortunately you can't drive. So Mom's gonna be your chauffeur, gonna drive you everywhere you wanna go. And you don't have to go to work. And Frank says, but my supervisor's gonna get mad at me. I gotta go to work or I'm gonna get in trouble. And Tim goes, Dad, they're gonna pay you to stay home. Yeah, you don't have to go to work and you're gonna get paid. I am. So we were very far into it. I didn't have the time to work up to these decisions, but it was a blessing for me. I always tried to look for the blessings, and it was a blessing that we got into the memory clinic, and that blessing that the doctor got the diagnosis early. I know many of you go years without getting a diagnosis. So we were so blessed in that. So I didn't have any problem taking his keys away, thank you, Lord, and took him to the adult day program, signed him up, just part-time at first because he was still able to get dressed and do everything, feed himself and get out the door that we had provided, or we got transportation for him. So he went part-time at first, but it didn't last very long. He pretty quickly graduated into full-time daycare. For the next 2 years, I attended as many support group meetings and educational conferences as possible to learn about this disease and its progression, while gaining the support I needed just to make it through the day. I became involved with the Dementia Concerns Coalition of Dodge County and want to thank them for their support and guidance. They provided scholarships to enable me to attend state conferences and local conferences. So many more opportunities now than in 2004. The Alzheimer's support groups were a lifeline for me. Our biggest concern at this time was safety. You just think because you're in your home with your loved one that he or she is safe. We had so many different scenarios, but I thought I would share a few of the issues that we ran across that weren't on our radar, but soon became on our radar. One morning, Frank said to our daughter, Becky, I think I'm gonna cut off all my fingers. No, Dad, that's not a good idea, as she's panicking. And she was just freaking out. So, now that that was on our radar, we took all the sharp knives, put them down in a cupboard way underneath in the back. And you know what, they're still there after 14 years. I guess I don't need those knives anymore, you know? But it wasn't on my radar that he was thinking about something like that. Would he have done it? I don't know. But hey, I didn't want to wait around and find out. So, and then another time, he was in the bathroom. He was in there for quite a while, so I went to check on him, and he was dumping the entire bottle of Lysol down the drain. Now, that wasn't a real problem, but he could have been drinking it. So, on my radar, all the chemicals got put away so that he couldn't find them. Sometimes it's not just on my radar, but it's on other people's radar. On a field trip with the Adult Day program one day, they went to Big Sky Nursery to look at the flowers and everything. And Frank was still able to get up and walk on his own at that time. So they're walking around the nursery, and all of a sudden somebody says, "Where's Frank?" And so then they started looking for Frank, and he was sitting out in the parking lot in someone's car. He was on the passenger side, and thankfully, I believe they got to him before the owner of the car did. But it hadn't been on their radar for Frank. He hadn't done anything like that. So then it was on their radar, and their corrective action was to, from now on, Frank was on one of the little stretchy wristbands. So that worked. He didn't seem to mind it, and he was still safe then, and he was comfortable. So that put something on their radar that they needed to watch for. Okay, this one's important, and back to a little bit of the driving. I was driving down the street, and Frank is sitting next to me in the passenger seat. And all of a sudden he opens the door. I didn't ever think about him opening the door. And I, of course, yelled at him, you know, "Don't do that, Frank, you know, that's dangerous." So then I still didn't click in that he would repeat that until the next time that he opened the car door. And I said, "Oh my gosh, okay. What do I do now? He's gonna open this door." And in the front seat, it didn't have any child-proof locks. So from then on, Frank got to ride around being chauffeured from the back seat of the car with the child-proof locks on. Now it's on my radar. You know, you run across them and you have to address them. You know, you need to. And I was guilty. I was in denial. Oh, you know, stop that. You know, it was just something he did. But no, he did it again. And we have to make sure that we're aware. And that's what so much of these classes and conferences and things are for, is just to spread the awareness. Because we haven't been through these things before. Pray to God you don't have to go through them, but it happens. Mike, what you want? Yep. I can skip that. On February 20th of 2010, I was lying in bed trying to decide how I was going to remodel the bathroom when I realized that remodeling the bathroom wasn't the answer. It was very unsafe. We had a very small bathroom. It was difficult to get Frank and either my sister or myself in there with him to shower him and take care of him because he couldn't do anything by then. And I was so afraid that he would fall and hurt my sister, who had had 2 knee replacements, or me, or God forbid he'd fall and hurt himself, and then he gets placed in a facility that I don't want him at. I was so afraid that he would be placed somewhere not of my choice, and I was just laying there worrying about it. And then I had my revelation. And it's not my job to take care of Frank. It's my job to make sure Frank is taken care of. Whoa. Feeling my heart going, and wait a minute. 2 minutes ago, it was my job. And now I'm saying, it's not my job to take care of Frank. It's my job to make sure he's taken care of. It gave me the peace and the courage to call and check, well, of course, with my kids, to say that I think we need to put Frank on the waiting list at the Remembrance Home. A couple years prior, I had a meltdown and I went to all of the facilities for long-term care and the memory care units, and some I just didn't prefer, and the Remembrance Home is where we knew we would like Frank. It was close, it was wonderful, it was small, and I loved Kathy Bates. So I called her and I said, Kathy, I'm calling to, or I said I need to talk to you. So I think I went in and I said, I need to put Frank on the waiting list. And of course I'm a mess, I'm hysterical, crying. And she says, Jean, you did that 2 years ago and he's 5 from the top. I said, whoa, I didn't even remember it. She says, well, you were a little bit emotional on that day. Yeah, really. And then I'm going, well, wait a minute. I was only ready to put him on the waiting list, and now you're telling me he's 5 from the top? I didn't know if I was ready for that. But the Lord took that out of our hands. It was like, you know what, Jean, it's time. Within 2 weeks, they had an opening. And within 4 weeks, we were moving Frank into his new room. Cried all the way there, calling my son and saying, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. He said, Mom, you are. It's the right thing for you, but mostly it's the right thing for Daddy. So we took him in, and to put it on their radar, I wrote up a letter, my daughter and I did, about Frank, telling them all of his likes and dislikes. He was only 58 at the time. I said he doesn't like Lawrence Welk. He wants the Beatles, Rolling Stones, you know, car racing, NASCAR, you know, because they needed that on their radar. You know, they needed to know how to comb his hair. They needed to know that during a bath, you sing 99 bottles of beer on the wall, 99 bottles of beer. It helps you get through the shower. You know, so those are the important things. So put it on their radar. I also stayed for 2 days and 2 nights in his room in the recliner because I needed it on all shifts. I needed it on their radar. I needed to make sure they read our wants and expectations for Frank. But he wouldn't be able to tell him, so I had to get it on their radar. So we taped that to his door, and we made sure that everybody understood what our expectations were for Frank's quality of care. The ADRC of Dodge County and Care Wisconsin were such a blessing when all of this started up too, on making sure that we had our documents done. They walked me through every step of the way on the power of attorney for healthcare, power of attorney financial, and that's one of the things I want to make sure everybody takes on their radar today. If you don't have that done, put it on your radar. You need to do that immediately. That is something you need to have done. So, and it hadn't been on my radar because I'd never heard of this, you know. Anyway, so please take that away from today. Then for the next 8.5 years, Frank was very comfortable. In 2016, September 13th, I received a call and he had aspirated, and with pneumonia. Well, I had never heard the word aspirated before. So they said they took him to the hospital then and they said he's aspirated. Well, okay. So, fix it. Because I didn't know what it was. I hadn't heard that tied into the word pneumonia. I always knew in my family, I'd always talked about the life plan for Frank was that after all of these years, he could no longer walk, talk. He was bedridden for 2.5 years on hospice, that we were not going to treat pneumonia. So that was our choice, totally a personal choice. But I didn't realize when they said aspiration that was pneumonia. So they've already pumped him up full of all the antibiotics and everything, and that was in 2016. So then it's just going, getting him better and going back to the home and being put on hospice then for the next 2.5 years until Thanksgiving last year. He started running a fever, very mild fever, but his brain was no longer able to operate his body temperature and things. So we knew that it was, the time was getting very close. So the hospice team, amazing, wonderful people to help us through that. They discussed the care plan and focused on quality of life and practical needs, medical and emotional, anything you could need. Just take it to talk. So on Thanksgiving of last year then, they called and said that Frank wasn't feeling well. So then I went in and with his temperature unstable, I stayed in his room with him for the next 3 days, every 2 hours, jotting down his temperature, and like something was going to change, I don't know, but hospice was in and out, and the staff was wonderful. Kathy Bates had come on Saturday afternoon, her day off, and sat on the floor by Frank's bed. It was, of course, lowered down because he was bedridden, and she sat there for 2 hours because they become attached too. It's just, she was there for me, she was there for herself, and she was there for Frank. So I'll never be able to repay that. And then it was very peaceful. And I'm going to say a relief for the entire family, for Frank, that he was now able to walk, talk, smile, drink a Diet Coke, and with Mom. Maybe they were even eating a candy bar, but anyway. So we've went the whole journey through, and I still participate in the FTD support group that began in Milwaukee 2.5 years ago, and they're like family. And you look for something like, why did this happen? Well, I put it in that it must have happened to us so that I could come here and talk to you and maybe put something on your radar, maybe help somebody think about tough decisions. And my support group members at FTD, they make me feel like that they've appreciated it, and it's just, it's still support for me too, so thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Andy Dominic. First off, I think it's really cool that these two young ladies next to me are here, because I have Parkinson's with neurocognitive impairment, mild, but everybody always asks how Andy is. They hardly ever ask how my wife is. And you guys had heck of a job, and my hat's off to you. It's pretty cool. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's about a year ago. I'm glad I have a mic because usually I'm doing this, like I'm going to take over the world any moment because I don't know what to do with my damn hands. So this is kind of nice having a mic. And another thing that's changed me with Parkinson's is I'll probably end up crying sometime during my presentation. It's always a manly man, but that's gone now, so don't let me watch this happy love story because I'll be sniveling right next to my wife. But I spent 20 years in the U.S. Navy. I did 9 active and 11 reserve, and then I was an operations manager for Walmart distribution for 26 years. Always in charge of a lot of things, important things, people, making decisions every day. As time went along with my work, over 26 years things changed a lot. And I would get to make a decision and I'd have to go through 6 things that had changed for that same thing. I couldn't figure out which one it was. It was very frustrating. I would have conversations with my associates, and then the next day I couldn't remember what those were about. Frustration got worse and worse, and went to my doctor. Basically told me you're under a lot of stress. You should take these happy pills, these will be good for you. I didn't buy it, my wife didn't buy it. One day I was so frustrated at work, my blood pressure was so high that I called my wife and I told her, I said, I need to go to the ER. And I don't go to the doctor, so if my arm is chopped off here, just put a couple stitches on there and I'll be okay, because I don't do that. So she knew something wasn't quite right. Long story short, we ended up going to the hospital. My heart's fine, my blood pressure's okay. Turned out of the environment. They take me for a, Jenny, what was this, psych? Neuropsych. For 4 hours, and said, yeah, you definitely have some issues. So we go to our neurologist, and one thing, I've always had a great sense of humor, and I still have it. You have to have a good sense of humor, but I was talking to my neurologist for the first time. Her name is Renee Patrick, and she's all serious, and she's asked me, well, what's this and that, and I said, it all started out with this little finger going like this. And I said, if I would have known back then what I know now, I'd just cut that darn thing off. And she looked at me and dropped her pen. I went, great, now I'm going to go in a rubber room for a couple of days. So I have to be careful how I phrase things. So we were hoping that of all the things that were wrong with, or I could have had, that I'd have Parkinson's. So when we found out that it was Parkinson's, we went, yay. So isn't that great? Well, this is the lesser of the other evils. And I was really bad. When Jenny said when I hit that barrel coming back, it was windy and my truck kind of flew back and forth, but I was struggling at that time, and I was almost got caught up in a phone scam. They told them they were going to come arrest me if I don't give them this information. I was freaking out. That's not me. I was like, oh yeah, whatever. I would know that in 2 seconds. So they put me on carbidopa-levodopa, and I took a pill, and 30 minutes later, it was like, holy buckets, that's pretty good stuff. Because when you have Parkinson's, it's like someone took your brain out of your head and then wrapped it in wet cheesecloth and stuffed it back in and then put the cap on, and then everything that comes in and goes out is kind of mushy. So that really helped me a great deal. And as luck would have it, my wife is a very good research person. She's a smart young lady. Hey Andy, you want a box for Parkinson's. I'm like, yeah, right, we're gonna have a bunch of people with Parkinson's punching each other in the face. That's a pretty smart idea. No. Well, yeah, I'll think about it, whatever. So, just so happens they opened up a Rocksteady boxing in Beaver Dam. On top of that, of my Parkinson's, or my carbidopa-levodopa, I'm able to pretty much do most things I could before. It just takes me a little longer. I have to figure it out. I don't quit. See, here you go.
Don't you
Told you,
cry.
I told you.
Don't you cry.
That when the good Lord decides to take me, I don't want on my obituary that Andy Dominic died of a long fight with Parkinson's, or one of the other 20 other things associated with Parkinson's that can kill you. I wanted to say that Andy Dominic got into a draw with Parkinson's because it died the same time I did, so I ain't gonna lose. I think when you are diagnosed with something like Parkinson's, you have two things that you can do. One is ignore it, it's going to go away. Or two, you have to accept it. The quicker you accept it, the better it is for you and everyone around you. I'm a stubborn person, that's my wife. A very stubborn person. But I realized that I have a problem. I had to accept it. So now what do? They told me, well, this is what will happen to you. You can't expect to get any better, and we'll just keep giving you these medications and ramp it up, and that's how it's going to work. I refuse to accept that answer. So I box 3 times a week. I try to keep my brain as active as I can. And I want to do things like this because I want other people to realize that it's not a death sentence right out of the gate. It's in your mind. And if it don't mind, it don't matter. I have 4 daughters. My youngest is 9. The other one's 14, and the other 2 are out of the house, have no sons, so I wonder why I shake, right? I wouldn't trade them for nothing. Like my mom always told me I wouldn't give $1 million for any of my kids, but I wouldn't take a penny for another one just like them. Some wisdom to that. Well, I'm fairly young yet. I was diagnosed at 58 years old, and I've had it for a couple of years, though I was misdiagnosed. I have a family I still have to take care of. So that's Mr. Mom making supper, doing the laundry. By the way, if you want to see some fun, watch someone with mild cognitive impairment put on a fitted sheet. It's pretty fun. Turn it around about 20 times. But I still have a family to take care of. So my job is now Mr. Mom. And whatever I can do to help my family, I will. And I get the garage door thing, because there's things that I know how to, I'm like a jack of all trades, master of none. But our garage door spring broke and I can fix it, but my wife is certainly not going to let me get on top of the ladder and fix a garage door spring. And of course it would come out and then the bar would hit me in the head, knock me out, and I'd fall out. So those are things that I used to be able to do all the time. Well, I can't anymore. Some things I can, but it's about adapting. So I'm cooking supper and I continually burn my arms. The solution to that is I have oven mitts up to my elbows, and it looks like I'm being an inseminator for a cow company trying to make a roast out of the damn oven. But I get it out and I don't get burned. cut some vegetables, I put a cut-resistant glove on my hand because I know damn well I'm gonna cut my finger. Does it help that for my manly man? No. That's a wuss. Why would you have to do stuff like that? But you have to put your pride aside, and you have to adapt.
Put it on your radar.
On my radar. My boxing group, what a great group of people. Now I thought it was just going to be just punching a bag and whatever and getting in shape and getting my eye-hand coordination, but it's much more because we all feel the same way. So I can tell my wife I slept like crap last night, but I can tell one of them and they go, oh, well, which was it? Did you wake up every 5 minutes and you go back to sleep? So it's a little support group that we lean on one another because I never met anybody that had Parkinson's or knew anybody in my family, I guess. And at first I was very hesitant to, I go to the grocery store and I get my card out and I go like this and they look at me like, oh, he's on drugs or is he drunk or whatever. And I was very self-conscious. And after I accepted it, I just went, hold on a second. I said, I have Parkinson's. It's going to take me a little bit to get my card out, but I'll get there. Or I'll be talking and all of a sudden my brain will just freeze. And I just lock up. And boy, that'll take you off. And then the harder you try to get that little phrase out of your brain, the deeper it goes back in there. It's kind of like when you're in grade school and somebody tells a joke in the back of the class and you're not supposed to laugh, but you keep laughing and then harder and the teacher's looking at you, now you're going to get detention. Not that I ever did, but per se. You just have to wait for your brain to catch up to your body. So my goal is to stay steady. And I think actually I'm getting better through my boxing. I'm grateful that you all have the patience to sit here and listen to me ramble on. And I won't get any more of your precious time, but it's a fight. I'm going to draw.
So we've got a couple minutes left if anybody has questions for our panel.
Thank you so much for telling your stories and for being brave to get up in front and tell very personal stories. And Andy, thank you for your humor. I don't have any, but I'm inspired now to get some.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, I also have a comment. I am a social worker at Hillside Manor, and I've been there for 13 years. We can't hear. Hold on. I'm a social worker over at Hillside Manor. I've been there for about 13 years. I really appreciate you guys telling your story. Typically when people come in, they're already pretty far along, and this is the second conference I've been to this month and I've had tears in my eyes, so I really appreciate you guys telling your story.
Anybody else?
Thank you. So I think in each of your stories you mentioned about how you really had challenges either with misdiagnosis or just challenges with docs being either really straightforward with you and not really providing a lot of information. I guess, do you have any advice for how we can help docs help families better, and just anything that you can provide in that arena?
They need to get more education. They need to get more education out to the medical world. People, the doctors, the nurses, the emergency room employees. When we have to take one of our loved ones in that has dementia and they aren't able to communicate, but they look fine and you haven't gotten there yet. You know, you don't know what they're saying, they don't understand what's going on, especially if they can't communicate. And they unfortunately still don't understand the whole dementia world. So I feel we need to get more education out there, and I know that they're working on that, and I know that Alzheimer's has things where they go out and into the hospitals and do conferences and to get that awareness up. But I think it's going to be force-fed to them in the next few years, because they're not going to have any choice but to get the education, because there's going to be more of us down the road that are going to have it. So they need to get on board now.
I hope they also realize that it isn't just medication. We'll give them a pill, because my doctor said, well, is he on any medication? I said, no, I chose not to go that route with him because I was reading exercise, like the other guy spoke, exercise, social skills, and just keeping active. I think have saved my husband a lot more than the pills, because there's side effects from the pills that could be worse than what's actually happening. And doctors need to be made aware of what we're going through. I don't know, unless they experience them themselves. I just felt the first doctor was like, oh, you're whining again. I mean, because I left him for that reason, because I had female problems. He goes, oh, you're over 40, what do you expect? Well, I expect you to understand, because this is what I read, and if you have this, you're supposed to let your doctor know. That was before I had an OBGYN, but he just blew us off. So I've switched from him with my husband now too. I said, he's not doing anything. No, just take this pill, take this pill. They're not getting to the cause or whatever.
I guess I'm just curious, my father died when he was 79. He had been in a nursing home for 12 years with Parkinson's, but he did not have dementia, and I'm wondering if that's necessarily a given, because my sister, she died in April in a nursing home with Parkinson's, and she had the dementia. What actually took her life was congestive heart failure and edema. So I'm just wondering, what do you know, having seen these physicians and things about Parkinson's? And I have a brother and another sister who appears to be, she's experienced some dementia, and I'm wondering, what is the likelihood, you know, is Parkinson's a genetic issue where, you know, of the four of us, you know, in the family, can it happen? I mean,
So there's no guarantee that it is or isn't going to happen. And so that can be really challenging because we don't know sometimes where that's going to go to. Not everybody that has Parkinson's develops that dementia piece of it.
that was the concern, because we didn't see it in my dad for all those years. It was hard for him to talk because his voice was so low and muffled, but up until the very end, he knew what was going on, so he did not have the dementia, whereas my sister experienced quite severe dementia, so, okay.
Because of the crossover that the neurologist talked about.
Any other questions for him?
So I hope that this isn't too personal of a question. I know a lot of families are low income, and some of the things that you spoke about made me think like, you lost the income of a partner earlier than you thought that you would, and I guess I wondered how much help there was out there for caregiving, for things that help with keeping active and things like that, and I didn't know if you'd be able to speak toward that a little bit, how much was, percentage-wise, like how much was savings that you personally, this was something that you decided to do, and then I also remembered you had mentioned that the doctor had said that you yourself could go and waste your own money. Did that end up being that the doctor did not refer you and then you personally had to pay for a specialist to give you more information? So I know that was a few questions.
There were
Several different things.
When our doctor poo-pooed it, he was already on Medicare, so they did cover it both times when we went down to her, so we were fortunate that way.
Yeah, the financial is one of the most stressful when you have two incomes and all of a sudden you're blindsided and now tomorrow you only have one because it wasn't on our radar, we weren't prepared for it. It was extremely frightening. I was very fortunate that Frank worked at John Deere, so he was able to go on to long-term disability for 12 months, I think, which gave me time to think and figure out something. So his long-term disability check went to his daycare, the entire thing. So I was just thankful that we had it, felt blessed that he was able to go there. And then when his long-term disability runs out, then he was able to go on Social Security. So then his Social Security picked up the daycare. We weren't prepared financially for Frank to be in a long-term care facility, so I had the guidance of the ADRC and Care Wisconsin. Frank qualified and earned his time, so he was able to qualify for Care Wisconsin, and thank the Lord for that every day. So yes, it's very difficult, but the ADRC and Care Wisconsin and your lawyers can talk you through those situations. Do you know anything about she said something about the Parkinson's, Andy?
It was more, I think, I don't remember saying anything about the Parkinson's. It was more of like a general question about like the financial, because I know
because he was younger.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it
okay.
could be hard, but thank you very much.
Yes.
I guess the question is too, which might be helpful to this young lady, is that once you have that diagnosis, that those caregivers or the physicians or whatever direct you to the ADRC or get a Social Security disability determination?
No, the memory clinic didn't refer me to the ADRC. They gave me the diagnosis. I then got the information from the Alzheimer's Support Group. The Dementia Concerns Coalition had a conference within like 2 months of that. That's when I found out about Darla also told me right away, Jean, get your power of attorney, so healthcare done and things like that. So no, my doctor did not steer me to those.
That's something else that
Yes, the doctors need to be made aware of where they can give you a pamphlet. Now, I do know that the pamphlets for the ADRC and Alzheimer's are in my doctor's office. I do know that. So but then again, my doctor's also the director of the hospice team, so they're kind of up on it. So, thank you. Did that help? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. 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 Yeah.
was fortunate enough to be able to be helpful.
Yes. Yes. Right. Yeah.
You can get them on Medicare sooner.
Oh, she's saying that get that diagnosis and get them on Medicare or their assistance, find out what's available as soon as possible.
And that's not income related.
Yeah.
Disability.
Right, disability related. Okay.
One more question over here.
Well, I just wanted to thank you all so much for speaking, because it's so helpful to hear people who are going through it, who have lived through it, who have gone through the whole journey. But Jean, thank you for sharing that, you wrote Frank's story and share that with the staff, because I think so often that's something we're not even thinking of when we're placing our loved one. It's, we need to get them somewhere, right? We need to get them somewhere, and we need to get them there now. So to be able to share their story, their personal journey, what they're like, what they don't like, how they like their hair, it's just such a huge asset for those staff to be able to know him and get to help him better. So thank you guys.